In Chile, 11 people have been killed in violent protests across the country over the last week. The demonstrations were triggered by a proposal to raise subway fares. A state of emergency has been declared in cities across the country. The protests are now in their 8th day, even though the president has suspended planned hikes in fares. There's more than just a rise in subway fares making those protesters angry. While Chile is one of Latin America's wealthiest nations, it's one of the most unequal. So, for example, among the OECD nations, Chile ranks the worst for economic inequality. A 2006 government survey revealed Chile's richest 20% earned 10 times more than the poorest 20%. GDP fell to 1.8% in the first half of the year, and many basics, including water, highways and the current pension system, have been privatised, and that, of course, has come at a cost to the country and in it that way. Matt Rivers joins me now to put this into perspective. The measures, the depth of the inequality is one thing. The measures that the president is prepared to agree are another. Do they go far enough?
Well, I mean, if you look at the thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people that have made their way onto the street, Richard, over the past several days, I think no. I mean, there's a saying going around in Chile right now where the fare hike, which has now been suspended, it was only going to raise the price of a metro ticket by 30 pesos, but you're hearing people on the streets say it's not 30 pesos, it's 30 years, meaning what people out on the streets right now are saying is that they're protesting not over a simple rate hike in the subway system, but what they believe are years of government policies that have benefited the wealthy. It's a country where the rich get richer, so the critics say. And meanwhile, you have the broad swath of the population who have been promised to make it into this high income country status, and yet they've seemed to settle into this middle income trap. Even though they are Latin America's richest country, you have a ton of frustration, and you're just seeing it boil over right now on the streets in Santiago and in other cities around the country.
Right, now it's interesting. We're looking at live pictures coming from Santiago at the moment, and when I've been to the country a few times, you know, there is a perception, and certainly it feels extremely European in that sense of wealth and culture and elegance and all of that. But it's what you're telling me is this is masking a depth of poverty pretty almost unrivaled in the area in terms of inequality.
I mean, you said it right off the top, Richard. It is always, year after year, among the world's leaders in economic inequality. And if you talk to people on the streets, what they're going to tell you is that they're frustrated about pension reform, something that they'd be wanting to see. They're frustrated about what they would call a lack of funding for the public education system. They are frustrated about the fact that their water sources, for example, are privatized. There's a number of different measures that the Chilean government and these neoliberal type policies over the past 20, 30 years now have taken that have really angered the people there, and that's what you're seeing manifest on the streets.
Right. So what can the government do? What policies? You know, I'm thinking of similar. There's no similarity as such, but you've got Chile, where it's economic issues. You've got Beirut, where people are on the street at the moment protesting, again, on economic issues. But in either case, what is it that's available for the government to do to assuage this criticism?
Well, I think what you're hearing from organizers and from people on the streets right now is that there needs to be a broad set of more populist economic reforms. I mean, and it's interesting what you're seeing here in Chile. You know, you're seeing these kind of protests spring up around the world. The similarities there are striking in the sense that there is one spark. So in this case, it's a rate hike to a subway fare, but it just unmasks a broader set of circumstances. But you know what activists are saying is that the government needs to enact a whole swath of economic reforms designed to not enrich the elite, but to benefit, you know, your ordinary student, for example, a student who believes that his or her public education at his university or her university has not been funded adequately, you know, at the cost to his or her education. I mean, that's one of the specific issues. This protest was sparked by students, and one of their issues is public education reform. So there's a number of different things in the pension system, in public education, amidst utility privatizations that they want fixed, and whether that's going to happen anytime soon, we can't tell, but the Chilean government certainly has some problems on their hands.